Good morning, everyone. It's Yvonne here to do your What's Cracking reading. We're going to use the ethereal visions for your tarot reading today. Thank you so much for all your beautiful comments. I note that there are some new people on board, so welcome. Thank you for joining me, and for all of those who've been with me, some of you from the onset of the journey, you know how much I appreciate you. All right. Let's see where we're going with your reading today. All right, so we're starting off with the Chariot. The Chariot is the card of Cancer. So if you're a Cancer, you're dealing with a Cancer, sometimes the reading can be just that little bit more full of messages for you. So the Chariot as a card talks about forward movement, but it also is in most of the decks stalled. And in the original deck, it sort of talks about having all the opposing forces going in the right direction. So the idea is you've got the possibility of moving forward, but maybe there are things you need to do that take you in the same direction. Because in the original tarot, there is always two horses or sphinxes, whatever, and they're both looking like they're going in opposite directions. So the idea is you will move forward, but you do need to have your sort of, as I will say, all your ducks in a row. So there seems to be some forward movement here. For some of you, this could be Cancer though, because I do see the moon here, which for me is the card of Cancer, but also represents the sign of Pisces. So we do have two cards here which represent Cancer. So there may be forward movement with the Cancer. The moon card sort of tells me maybe things are getting a little bit more, I almost want to say enlightened for you. You know, sometimes with the moon card, it's sort of like you're looking at things in the dark. You could be looking at things through your shadow side. It could mean that you're not being completely aware of your emotions, or that you're dealing with someone who's not being very clear about their emotions. So for me, the moon is a card that talks about sort of looking at things through a dark lens or through some sort of confusion. So let's keep going here. All right, we do have the Knight of Pentacles. I feel this is somebody you know here. I really do. Somebody may have caused you some hurt here. You do have the Magician. Okay. I'm feeling here that maybe you're getting to see something in a different light. It's almost this energy that perhaps things have been cloudy for you up until now, but something is being shown to you. Now, for some of you, you may have been working through some other pains or some other things around your shadow side, and maybe that's helping you to see things more clearly. When we're sort of operating without being really aware of our own, I guess we could call them triggers, or our own emotional things that hold us back from things, sometimes we can look at things through that lens. So for example, if you've been highly traumatized by a past relationship, then sometimes you can go into a new relationship and still look at it. We call it baggage, but what we're really saying is you're looking at it through eyes that show the part of your soul that's been hurt. So for example, if you had a lot of trust issues in your relationship previously, you may take those into your next relationship if you haven't healed them properly. I feel like I always say an awareness of this is so important, because if we're not aware of it, we can act out of our emotional state rather than looking at it with a clear vision. So if you've had hurt and pain from something before, you may transfer that onto another person without actually realize you're doing it, because you may not have healed it, so you may not recognize it within yourself. Now, that doesn't necessarily always mean a relationship. I mean, that can be a family member, a job, a friend, where we've gone in already heightened by something that's happened to us in the past, and we take that into our new relationship with whoever it happens to be, and we're immediately sensitized to new behaviors coming at us. So sometimes you can react, and even yourself afterwards you think, wow, I don't know what happened there, I reacted so bitterly or so strangely to that person, but yet I'm not really sure why I was so aggravated by that situation. And I say to people often it's a cumulative thing. So we may have experienced things in the past which we haven't dealt with or acknowledged, and then something really small will trigger that and it all comes to the surface. That's why it's so important to recognize your emotional state, your behaviors, who you are in a situation, that type of thing. And I feel like here somebody is triggering something in you because of those emotional states. And I'm trying to sort of give you an example, but I do remember one time I never spoke up against anybody. I was people pleaser person as a younger person, and I used to just bottle it all up inside, and I'd be really angry, but I would walk away and just talk myself out of saying anything. And I always say I was real conflict averse, like I didn't want to have fights with anyone. I don't know why. I don't know why. But looking back, there was a time when I came into work one day and I had so much responsibility because I just kept taking things on because of my inability to say no. And I walked in the door at work, and one of the other managers from another area said, "This place is a mess today. I want you to organise to clean it up." And I thought, well, it's not my mess. And normally, I suppose it would have been good to say to them, well, actually, that's not my responsibility, but however, I will organise someone, which would have been an assertive way of managing that. Or even, that's not our responsibility, that belongs to your team or this team, please see that manager. Again, assertively. Not me. I just lost it. I got really angry and I flew off the handle. And then people started doing this thing where they kept coming to me and saying, "What is wrong with you?" And I realized then how everybody had perceived me as always being this calm, quiet, push around person. And all of a sudden I'd retaliated. And I felt so guilty then that I dragged my guilt around with me all day. So that's just an example of how you can let things become so, you just keep throwing it into your shadow. I don't want to say anything because I've always been taught not to be angry. I don't want to say anything because I feel that I don't want to upset people. I don't want to say anything because it's so much better to avoid the conflict and just go about my business. So all of that sits in your shadow energy. And then what happens is somebody just tilts those scales just a fraction too much and bang, you're off the air. So I feel like something like this is happening here. Somebody may be sort of talking to you about something or addressing something with you, possibly again a water sign here, and it may be that somehow or another you're almost sort of attacking this from your past hurts rather than sort of seeing yourself as the observer in the situation and paying attention to your triggers. That is what your triggers are there for. They're there to show you that something is not quite right and you need to go and have a look at that. That trigger is not the other person's fault. All right, so I feel that something like that is happening here. Let's dig deeper. All right, so we have the Two of Swords coming through. Let's find our sweet spot here. There we go. I love this deck, but it's really shiny. So we have the Two of Swords being followed by the Fool. Rightio, I can see straight away what's happening here. I feel this is very much an energy here. Page of Cups, of you starting something new and leaving the past behind. Now, whether that's in relation to that cycle, that you've seen something, that you've been doing something a certain way and that you need to understand yourself and love yourself more. If you loved yourself more, then it would be so much easier to see when these triggers happen. But I feel like here there's a really big decision here to step out of that sort of energy that's keeping you trapped. Because when we're in that energy of being triggered constantly, that is a real danger to your adrenal glands, to yourself, to your stress levels, and it depletes you. So when you're constantly in the energy of being triggered, you're going to get very tired, very sad, very run down. You might start crying all the time because you are getting exhausted. You're acting in a what we call hypervigilant state. And to me, it's like bang, I'm doing something about it now. I'm not going to stay in this energy any longer. What do I need to do to get out of it? And I see it here. And a lot of it is letting go of your past. So whether that's letting go of, very sort of recent things, or whether it's letting go of things that were affecting you a long time ago, I see you making a very conscious attempt here to give yourself the love you need and to let go of the things that have been holding you back. Somebody's about to trigger you in some way, shape or form that's going to make you really understand how to let go. All right, let's see where we're going. So I have the Ten of Pentacles. What a beautiful card to get there. Okay, with the Tower, there it is. And the High Priestess. The High Priestess is a card that talks of being really intuitive, really understanding who we are, knowing who we are at such a deep level that we do recognize when perhaps we need to pay attention to something. Some people go through their whole lives just blaming everything around them, blaming this for happening, that for happening, the past for happening, and they become so entrenched in the outer blame that they don't, it's victim mentality, and they don't seem to see it within themselves. I agree that sometimes we get angry with an outside influence, but we need to understand nothing is responsible for our reactions. So it's really important to understand why we're reacting and how we can do that differently. And to me, with that Tower and that High Priestess there, it really is about trusting who you are as a person. But there's a change coming here because you're seeing it differently to what you used to. So we can blame other people, we can blame other races, we can blame the people around us, we can do all of those things, but ultimately we are the only ones that are responsible for our own life. Nobody else is responsible for us. And we see it all the time in the news where everybody's being held responsible for things. And sure, there is a responsibility of higher, I suppose, governments and things like that to make sure that we are certain amounts safe, but they still will blame other people. Even if it's another party, they will still blame all the time. It will always be a blame on other people. So I guess what it's saying here is there is a real instinct here of you understanding that perhaps you have a little bit more responsibility in this situation than you realize, which means you have more power basically to do what you need to do. Let's keep going. Oh, the Hermit's coming through. A lot of major arcanas here because I have the Devil as well. Okay, and the Emperor at the end. That's about taking your power back right there. Look at all the major arcanas here. I feel like this is a really big event for some of you here. Now, it could be that somebody from your past has triggered this because I've got a lot of past energy. So, again, it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, although I feel like for some of you it might be. I have a lot of major arcanas coming through. So I have a lot of different energies represented here. So I feel that it could be anyone in your world here, but you are healing that part of your ego that makes you defensive and easily emotionally disrupted by others. So what you're doing in effect is you're putting your power in other people's hands. That's what it's all about. So, sometimes if we blame someone else, it's easy to blame, but what you're in fact saying is, I don't have the power in this situation, so it's going to be yours. So you're giving your power to somebody else. When you sort of realize that, you realize how important it is to really understand who you are. Because some of us give our power away constantly. We just keep handing it to everybody. And if you've got a victim mentality, that is the way you go. So you're always giving someone else the responsibility for your own well-being. And it really isn't the way it is. But because we have the Devil energy here, I would say strongly that it's something you learn to do as a child. Now, I often talk about the fact, of trauma and things like that in children, and difficult upbringings. But the fact is, it's a survival mechanism. It really is a survival mechanism. So if I give someone else my power, I don't need to take responsibility for it. So it's like I relieve myself of that energy. And I feel like here that you are understanding that, because this situation tells me you're taking your power back. So let's dig a little bit deeper and see if I can see why. All right, so see forward movement. Okay, so the forward movement is coming as a result of taking your power back and understanding how to work with your own energies here. We have the moon as well. So many major arcanas. That is your emotional state coming to the top. I feel that you may have had some sort of communication with somebody where you've got pain from the past that's still sitting with you. So it could be that it is a family member, but it could be a love interest, because I've got the Magician here. So somehow or another, I'm feeling that somebody who's created pain for you in the past is possibly still doing that, or it's still affecting you at a deeper level. What do we have? Look, there's a brand new beginning. There is a beautiful message in this reading, and I feel like the message is here that you're seeing something within yourself that you've been doing for a long while but not really recognizing why. And I feel that we might get some information from the Oracle card. So it could be somebody from your past triggering this. Absolutely. So somebody that you haven't seen for a long while could come in, make contact with you, and all of a sudden your emotions are way back where you were then. It could be that somebody else is triggering something within you that's taking you back to that time. In fact, somebody said something to me yesterday about a relationship they'd had with someone and they could see it in other people. That's a good one, because sometimes other people would trigger you because of what the other person did. So maybe it's a relationship where you are reacting to somebody because of what's been done in the past. But whatever it is, you're seeing it this time around. You're letting it go. Oh, 2 cards have come out. Okay, we have Indy and Epona's Wild Laughter. I don't always read 2 cards, but every now and again, those 2 cards are both cards number 9, 54 and 63. And that just shot me right back to my childhood then. Something in that just shot me right back to when I was a kid. So I'll have to have a think about that afterwards. But both cards 9, which says to me there's some sort of cycle here, sort of coming to the end. So there's 63. And we'll have a look at 54 too, because a lot of the time 2 come out together, they fit together. So, okay, Epona's Wild Daughter it is. Epona's Wild Daughter is the Sphinx, whose riddles must be answered lest we otherwise be destroyed by our own internal conflicts. See, that's where the problem lies. Daughter reminds us that we cannot go forward until we face something buried within us that's holding us back. That's what's holding the Chariot back right there. So that's why the Chariot's there. Her presence in a reading tells us that finding and working through this is a task of some urgency. We can expect help in this from other people, from the fairies and from our dreams, but we must be open to these difficult questions and answers and be ready to face things about ourselves that are not as we would wish them to be. She urges us to heal the unresolved issues about who we really are and who we truly want to be. Oh my goodness, I love how these cards fall for me. Self-Transformation 101. There's a message coming from the fairies. And they're asking you to resolve it, basically. So that is why that one has come out. So let's have a look at Indy. Because indecision, wishy-washy, commitment, and decision-making. There's the 2 of Swords right there. It's decision time. So whatever this is, it's gone round too many times now. And the universe, spirit, is saying to you, you've been dealing with it for a long time and you need to pay attention and make a decision now. Time to make up your mind, make a decision and stick to your commitments. Set yourself a time period, right down to the day and hour. Give yourself time to put the decision into practice before it's too late. Gather information, whatever you need to do, because the answer will seem to fall into place at the appointed time. It's just a matter of trusting the answer and carrying it through. And again, it talks to you about asking for help. I don't feel that that's sort of asking for help as in getting somebody to do that for you. To me, it feels like maybe you need to talk it through with someone. Maybe you need to talk to someone about what's happening so you can understand how to work with that. That's what I'm feeling. Very beautiful messages from the Fairy Oracle there. Thanks, everyone.